Welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. In this engaging two-part series of the Hangar Z Podcast, Tony Webber and I welcome Dale Head, a seasoned expert in aerial firefighting. With a rich background in both the fire service and aviation, Dale shares his journey and insights into the high-stakes world of aerial firefighting. The conversation kicks off with Dale's experiences in the field, highlighting the vital role of air attack in initial fire responses and the challenges that come with managing aerial operations. Listeners will hear about the controlled chaos of firefighting missions where constant deconfliction is essential for safety and efficiency. Dale discusses the various aircraft employed in these missions, along with specialized equipment like infrared cameras that enhance firefighting efforts. Dale's passion for music also comes to light as he shares anecdotes from his unique band projects, infusing humor and camaraderie into the discussion. Alongside funny stories from their firefighting careers, the group emphasizes the importance of safety gear and the critical nature of mentorship within the fire service and the aviation industry. As the owner of a company that provides aerial firefighting services, Dale reflects on memorable fires and the complexities of maintaining and managing a fleet of aircraft. Finally, he offers valuable advice for those aspiring to enter the field of public safety aviation, inspiring newcomers to embrace the challenges and rewards of this vital career path. Join us for a compelling conversation that combines expertise, humor, and heartfelt messages about community and mentorship in the world of aerial firefighting. Thank you to our sponsors, Spectrum Aeromed, Astronautics Corporation of America, and Precision Aviation Group.
Welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z Podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Join your host, Jon Gray, Jeff Ratkovich, and Jack Shanley.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like you're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, through the shotgun, threw something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
4 on the stop. You're in custody.
Good advising code 4 on the stop.
Hey, welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast. I'm your host, Jon Gray. Have an awesome conversation in store for today. One of the topics of conversation that I love talking about is aerial firefighting. So to do that, we brought our co-host and really good friend, Tony Webber in. How you doing, Tony?
I'm doing good. I'm glad that we both made it through that long week of helicopter madness called Heli Expo.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And here we are again, and I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, we both survived.
Yeah.
We didn't get to hang out enough there for sure. There's so many things going on, and everyone's getting pulled in a ton of directions. Now called Verticon, I guess will be hard for me to get used to saying, but HEI's changed their name to VAI, Vertical Association International.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. You know, to kind of get into this conversation, our friend Matt Saluka, I'm probably saying his last name wrong. I think he always tells me I'm saying his last name wrong, but Matt's a good friend of ours from the Illinois State Police. He sent me a message and introduced me to Dale Head, and Dale's with us today. He is from the world of aerial firefighting. He has his own air tech company and a really interesting background. So I'm excited to get into that. But before we do, welcome to the podcast, Dale. How you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for having me. This looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as I said, I ran around the same airport with Tony, apparently. We figured out in the pre-interview.
Yeah. Small world.
It's such a small world every time we have these conversations, you know, and you were saying you were on a fire, was it 2017 down in San Diego County?
I actually was working with the Scoopers, San Diego City, contracted with the Scoopers to be prepared for a big event down there, and they needed an air attack. So I came down as the air attack pilot, and with a group of what we call the silverback air attacks, right? So some of the more like most experienced air attacks, Tony Dupree and Pat Bosch, and those cats that were down there, and I was flying them, and it was a great time. We didn't catch anything, which is good, but we did do a lot of training, and we made a lot of friends. So it was great fun. Yeah.
If you're going to be somewhere and not catch a fire, San Diego is probably the best place to be.
Right. We spent Thanksgiving and Christmas both with that team over there on the airport, having dinner in that hangar over there. Yeah,
that's cool.
In their little fire station there. It was great.
Yeah, San Diego's got a ton of amazing restaurants and even better, a ton of amazing breweries. Did you find yourself out at any of those places when you were down there?
Sure. I wandered around and got lost and enjoyed a lot of stuff. A lot of times on my own. We had a lot of fun though at the at the fire station, because I was a fireman in Sacramento for a number of years, and it was very much like that fire environment, which I had missed so much. So
yeah, that camaraderie is definitely the key to the job. That is, I think it's so intriguing for most folks, including myself. But yeah, stoked having the podcast. A couple traditions that we have in the podcast. One is drink the day, and I'll hop into that. It's fairly early. You know, we tended for a long time to record later in the evening, so it'd be a beer or a whiskey or something of that sort. But being that it's 11 o'clock, I got a lot of work to do today. I am rolling with a Black Rifle coffee in my Hangar Z Podcast Yeti mug. I don't know if you can see that.
I like it.
As a side note, I'm rocking my San Diego hat in honor of Tony and what you guys are doing down there.
Yes, so. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
I should have worn my San Diego fire hat that I have.
There you go.
Yeah.
But talk about swag. San Diego County Sheriff's, their Hell Attack swag is some of the coolest swag that I've seen. I'll plug that real quick. Tony, can you talk about the design and kind of how you guys came up with that?
It was our Hell Attack fire guys. So we're in partnership with CAL FIRE, and we're called Gillespie Hell Attack. And they made a logo with a sombrero and the sugar skull face, and it has the SD on it for San Diego, just like on your hat. And it turned out to be a very popular design that we have on our T-shirts, and then we have them on some of our hats. And I think I've gotten you some of the swag. So yeah. Very popular design, and real happy that the guys came up with such a cool logo for us for our Hell Attack group.
Yeah, Dale, you're gonna have to get your hands on some of that. It's cool. You might have it already. No, you said I
don't have any of the sheriff stuff. No.
Yeah.
No, but we'll have to have a beer and
absolutely
do some trading sometime.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Dale, for drink of the day for you, I know you're at the hangar. You showed us your hangar, right? Give us a little virtual tour of your spot. It's really cool. What's your drink of the day currently, and what would you be drinking if it were 5 o'clock in the afternoon?
I started the morning drinking Java Love, which is a brew that I started buying from my neighbor's kid years ago when he was selling it to raise money for his football team. And then one day I called him and I asked him, "Hey, where's the coffee?" He's like, "Oh, we quit selling it." I'm like, "Kid, where's the coffee? We want some Java Love." So I was having Java Love in my mug that I had from Afghanistan. The Hard Rock Cafe. It was under renovation when we left, apparently, but it's gone now. So I'm moving over to water in what my friend calls my Donny Osmond mug. So
that's cool. Yeah, that mug kind of uniquely summarizes your passion for music as well as your time in Afghanistan for aviation. Mm-hmm. So to dig into that as we go.
Yeah, well, I'm just a mix of different things. So, wherever you want to go, let me know. I'll follow.
Right. Tony, what do you got going today?
Well, I rolled out of the gym this morning, and the Starbucks drive-through is about a block away. So I'm rocking a Starbucks vanilla latte. If it wasn't before noon, and it was, say, one of our 5 o'clock podcasts, I'd be drinking one of my Mike Hess favorites. Yeah. Probably a Steel Beach or Easy Drinking, but I'm going to go with the coffee this morning.
All right. It's bougie. I like it.
Oh, you asked about what the 5 o'clock drink would be. Well, for me, being that I'm an owner of a company, it's more like 6:30, but it's a Crown on the Rocks.
Okay.
Or XO, but I just like straight Crown on the Rocks.
Can't go wrong with that for sure.
Nope. That's a steak.
Well, next time we all meet down in San Diego, we'll have to share some drinks and find ourselves some San Diego Sheriff's Hell Attack swag for sure.
I'll bring some swag with me, and then we'll make sure Dale's part of the club.
Yeah,
I'll bring you one of my some of my patches from NorCal Aero, which is our company.
Oh, right on. That's awesome.
That we had done. Now this year we switched over to Mindwinder Aviation entirely. So that was the first 4 years, 2020 through 2023 was NorCal Aero, but now it's going to be Mindwinder going forward. So
very cool.
Those will be collector's items, I'm sure, soon.
I noticed on the first patch you showed, it has the Forest Service coloring in there. Are you guys staying with that same color scheme?
Mindwinder has been burgundy and gray, but this was, it just was a Northern California with the sunset and the trees. It came out real nice, so.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to go to blue and gold for Mindwinder, just because I think it's going to make the planes look really pretty.
Yeah. Well, the next segment of the podcast is our hot seat questions, and I'll keep this to one since we're kind of limited on time. But this is just kind of an opportunity for us to break the ice and kind of go through some randomness. So for the single hot seat question, Dale, we'll start with you. Would you rather run out of creamer for your coffee or only have decaf coffee available?
Run out of creamer.
Yeah, absolutely. Decaf does no good for nobody.
What's the point? I mean, plus it doesn't taste as good.
Having said that, if we go to a nice dinner, sometimes I'll get a decaf cappuccino after dinner.
Oh, right.
If I have a caffeinated, cappuccino prior or just before going to bed, I'm not going to bed. So, but
yeah.
Aside from that, that's not happening.
I found that bread pudding goes with Crown very well.
Bread pudding. That's interesting.
Bread pudding and Crown actually doesn't taste bad together. So
wow.
You can have a dessert. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to try that.
And I'm a bread pudding fan, so as long as it's done right, that's awesome. Good to know.
Well, you got to go to Perini Ranch then down near Buffalo Gap in Texas.
Oh,
for the best bread pudding I ever had in my life. And last year I tasted it might be a close second, and only second because they cheated and put bacon on it. But that was up at a place in Bend, Oregon. But yeah, anyway.
Gotcha. Wow.
I'll have to send Jack Shanley over there to test that out. He's up there in Bend. Yeah. Tony, would you rather run out of creamer for your coffee or only have decaf available?
Well, I'm like you. If I'm late in the evening and I want to have a coffee, I'll do a decaf, or I'll be up all night because caffeine really affects me in the afternoon. But I definitely don't want to run out of creamer. Most of my coffees are a little sweeter, and kind of bougie. So I'm going to go with that one.
Is it like 50-50 creamer coffee for you?
No, 50-50. It's more like 70-30.
I love that you just own that straight up. I can give a shit if I could care less if somebody cares if I have a sweet coffee or not. That's great. Yeah.
Right on.
I'll load it.
Well, that's drink of the day in our hot seat. Again, just trying to break the ice and kind of see where we're going here. But man, it's really cool to talk to you. Thanks for joining us. I know you've got a really busy day ahead of you, including a visit from the FAA, which I'm sure we'll get into, and kind of what you're doing with your business there. And so before we get into that, let's start with you and where you grew up and kind of how you find yourself in the position you're in now. Thank you to our sponsor, Spectrum Aeromed. Spectrum Aeromed is your trusted partner in aeromedical solutions. Experience safety and innovation with their customized interiors designed for both rotor and fixed-wing aircraft. Elevate your patient care with Spectrum Aeromed. For more information, please visit us at spectrum-aeromed.com or visit our team at NBAA Base, booth 1107, or at AMTC, booth 819.
Well, I was born in Roseville, California, Northern California. And I grew up in Northern California, so I'm a Mountains Lakes Californian. Grew up with my buddies four-wheeling and going to the lake or the river. And I'm a third generation firefighter. My great uncle was a firefighter, and my father was a retired fire captain. And I remember early on just listening. I think my training started probably when I started listening to my dad talking with Jim Keskes on the back porch. And I would just listen to them about fire tactics and how he went into here and did that. And I think I really learned a lot just by sitting around listening to those two guys talk. So by the time I got on the fire department, I already had a lot of just inherent knowledge from these guys that had years of experience. I was fortunate enough to work with my dad on the fire department. I went on City of Sacramento in 1988 and did 9 years until I injured myself enough to where I thought, I don't want to be an old broken guy. So we punched out, and I married a beautiful attorney. We moved to San Francisco, and I just went into music full time there. So, so that's kind of, I went through Del Oro High School and marching band. We had an amazing marching band up in Loomis, California that would win sweepstakes all the time. And it was the first place I realized that I could be a part of something excellent and something that was bigger than myself. And I have to give a lot of credit to that band director, Mr. Jones, for creating that environment for all of us to understand that, you know, every step I make, we all make together. And so that's important in what we do now, right, Tony? Like right now, we're arm in arm out there in the world.
Oh, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah. So I think that was a good part of that foundation. You know, and then I struggled for a few years in my early 20s, trying to figure out what my direction was going to be. And then I took a test for the fire department, and I came in about 180, which wasn't going to be good enough to get hired. And some friends of mine got hired, a lady that I knew got hired, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do better next time. And I got 15 on the list, and I knew that was a job. And that changed my life entirely. The training, understanding what it meant to be there for somebody in a very real way and in all kinds of circumstances was an amazing thing to do. And I carry that with me all the time.
Yeah, that brotherhood that you kind of described is, I think, what we all love about public safety, and public safety aviation is even a you know, tighter knit community than what that floor experience is like. So that's what I miss the most. I retired last year and miss being on the hangar and around the police department, you know, hanging out with your friends that you just talked about. Like you have each other's backs, and the bond you form with them doing that is unlike any other bond that can be created. So I definitely miss that. You started talking about, you brought up your band experience in high school. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. You're still very much a part of the music scene. Can you talk about what you're doing and kind of what you've got a very unique band. I listened to a few of your pieces on YouTube, and I haven't seen something like what you've created very often, if at all.
Well, my most recent project that I've done, my last two albums were big band albums, like the style of band, like a Count Basie style band, or the band that you might know that backed up Frank Sinatra, or the Tonight Show band, right? That's the kind of band that I love. That's 17 people all breathing at the same time, right? All like landing on a note at the same time. And I love singing in front of that and playing my trumpet in front of that. So it's a very expensive proposition to make that kind of stuff work, but I'm dedicated to that sound. And so my last two albums were big band albums, and I had an idea of taking a bunch of classic rock songs from 1950s and all the way through the 1990s. So from Fiona Apple all the way back to I'm trying to remember his name. Who did Rock Around the Clock? You remember who that is? Yeah. And I should remember, I just can't right now. But so I have songs from 40 years of rock music on the last album. And it's all big band stuff. And so, and nowadays I play along, I go and play music every Sunday, and I just joined a funk band the other day. So I'll be getting back into playing lead trumpet and background vocals and some lead vocals in a band that here local in Reno.
That's cool.
But for years I did it professionally in San Francisco.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a big music fan, and two of my favorite bands, one is Dave Matthews and the other is the Zach Brown Band. And what I like about both of those bands is it's a true band, right? Like, kind of not exactly what you're describing, but it's more than the person on the vocals and a few people beside them. It's like you said, a bunch of people doing the same thing at the same time in unison, which is really impressive, so love that. But Tony, I know you're a big music fan. What's your take?
Oh gosh. I mean, I love any type of music, but growing up in the 80s genre is it for me. You guys probably heard all the bands and music from that age. And next week we fly into Vegas, and I'm going to see Journey probably for about the 25th time. So
wow, really?
Still stuck in the 80s and love all the 80s music. I love country western. So I can listen to pretty much anything and be entertained by it.
Yeah, Tony does a really good job of promoting the industry through social media and videos that you create. And I think just about every video that I've seen you create has an 80s theme behind it, at least with the music.
Yeah.
So I love all that. Dale, going back to you and your fire service career, can you talk about working for Sacramento and kind of what your experience was like there?
Well, I really loved the busy fire stations. You know, I found out early on I liked being downtown. They ran 4,500 calls a year on the engine. And although I was a large guy and they kept wanting me to go on the truck, I thought, no, I'm going to stay on the engine because I can get to the fire. I don't need a truckman to open the door for me. I can get all the way to the seat of the fire. And the faster I can get there, the less we need the other guys. So, you know, that was where I made my specialty of being an interior nozzle guy. And I did that most of the time, you know. A lot of medical aid calls, and like I delivered 6 babies the first time I ever saw that. I caught a baby on a front porch.
Wow.
of a trailer. You know. Yeah, so that was, you know, and then all the different things, and it's funny because you'll just all of a sudden remember something, you know, that happened still, you know, and I've been out of that fire service since 1997. So 27 years since I've left. And yet it's still, you know, I'm still on Facebook friends with my firefighter pals. We still chat all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was great. We put out the Delta King, which is a steamship that was a paddle wheel. I was on that twice, where the first time the Delta King was on fire, it was in construction. It was way down in the smokestack, and a welder got a spark down there. And so I went out there with a rookie captain, and we didn't have our mask, and we got out there because there was no smoke. So we got all the way out there and around the back side of it next to the river, and we could see just some smoke wisping out of one of the staterooms. So I went in there with a peanut line, that half charged, you know, house line, and sat there and listened, and I could hear the steam until the steam finally stopped. And then I came out and snot was coming all the way down to my, you know, and the chief goes, "Welcome to the Chokers Club, kid," you know. and then my father showed up with engine 1, and they cut a hole in the top of it and found the last bit of fire and put that out. So it was really kind of cool that I started putting it out, and my dad found the end of it, and we put it. And the second time there was a big fire on a ship right behind it, and that was that thing was totaled. But we kept the Delta King safe, and it was a hotel that was made out of matchsticks, basically.
Wow.
And so we had to get a good line down between the Delta King and the Spirit of Sacramento, and protect all the people that hadn't evacuated the hotel yet. So that was just one of the fun experiences. I loved that thing, fighting fire, finding my way to the seat, and just not knocking it down.
Yeah. Did you guys have a urban or a wildland response as well, or were you guys primarily structured?
You know, they did. They had task force that would go out. I never actually caught one, and I have to admit I wasn't honestly that aware of wildland firefighting at the time. You know, sometimes I thought maybe it would have been better if I'd have gone on CAL FIRE, where it had this wider variety of the mission. But I went on where my dad was, you know, and it was fun. So,
yeah. You talked about, you know, fighting that first fire without a mask, and that's one thing I've seen that's changed for the positive in the fire service. Is I think the stigmatism or the ego that says, "Oh, I don't wear my mask in a fire," has gone away for the most part. You know, when you look at all the ill effects it had on folks over the years.
Yeah.
Which you talk about with the snot running down your face. When I worked for the Forest Service on wildland fires, that was, I mean, there's no way around that. That was every fire, you're choking through smoke, and you'd come home and, you know, have black snot for days. Mm-hmm. And it's everywhere. I don't miss that part of it. Even though the further you get away from it time-wise, the less you remember the parts that weren't so fun. And you just focus on the things that were really cool. Going back to your time with the fire department, anything that was funny that you recall? Any funny incidents that you guys worked?
You protect and defend. So do we. Astronautics' proven cybersecurity, connectivity, and upgrade solutions support helicopter OEMs and operators worldwide. When the mission matters, you need to trust that your avionics systems are secure, connected, and reliable because lives depend on it. Continue to protect and defend. So will we. Contact Astronautics at www.astronautics.com.
Well, just to tap into that mask thing again, we didn't carry him out there because we didn't think there was a fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I never, the rest of my career, ever went someplace without my mask after that. So I should make sure I had it with me at least.
Yeah.
That way when we got surprised, we wouldn't get surprised again. So
Right.
I became a big proponent for all the safety gear. And actually that does lead to kind of a funny story. Once I was a veteran firefighter, I showed up on a overtime at Engine 12, and I got there, and all the young studs were out back. They had to bring it. They were like, bring it, and I walked out, and they had their turnout jacket kind of unhooked, and their sunglasses on, and their glare shields were up, and their collars weren't up, and I looked at that group, and I go, I'm not going any place with you guys. I walked over to the leader of them, and I took his collar, and I pulled it up, and I snapped his buttons for him, and I pulled his glare shield down. I said, now we can go someplace, now that you're ready to go. And I said, that looks cool. That doesn't look cool. And, but the kid that was inside cooking dinner didn't get that lesson. And that night we had a fire at a place called Yum Yum Donuts on Sutterville Road at 99. And we showed up there, and the kid's there without his mask on, and we get set up to go inside, and it's just in a bathroom. And I said, put your mask on. He's like, no, I got it. I'm like, put your mask on. No, I got it. Finally, he comes and says, go. And so we go, and he kicks the door in. I'm like, don't. He kicks the door in. We don't have water yet. And it was a mini backdraft. It actually pulled the air in. And I'm like, no. And I grabbed this kid by the collar, and I went to throw him out because I have my mask on. And the door had closed, so I threw him into the door, unfortunately. Poor kid. And then I kicked the door back open, and it was all gone. But it had burned his face and his ears.
Wow.
And so the next shift, he came by 12s while we were there. And I guess I was on detail. And he had a red line. Below where he was protected, his skin was fine, but he had a red line. And I said, I'm sorry to do this. I said, remember guys, what I talked about the other day about the safety gear? See the red line here? If he'd had his mask on, he wouldn't have that. And he'd be at work today instead of off with burns. So it was kind of a funny story, but it proves a point.
Yeah.
And yes. So they always told me after, I always got my stuff on, head.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right.
Yeah. Our friend Brian Smith, he teaches for APSA, and he actually taught at HI this year, all safety related stuff. And the guy's got a wealth of experience, really, really good dude. But he's in his class, he shows pictures of what you're describing for folks that, had the proper PPs on versus that didn't, and that burns that come with that. Tony, did you ever take his class?
Yeah. And it's pretty crazy to see when, you see somebody that's worn their, for us, it's our Nomex flight suits and your gloves on and not having your sleeves rolled up. And then you see somebody that, has gotten into a helicopter incident and they show that no gloves on, had their sleeves rolled up, and that whole lower part of your hand and arm is just, the skin's hanging off. It's pretty glaring to see how well your equipment works when it's used in the proper manner.
Yeah. It convicted me. I was not very good about wearing my gloves prior to taking this class. So I always had an excuse why I didn't want to wear them. They're uncomfortable, or it was hot, or I didn't have the dexterity. Yeah, right. I didn't have the dexterity I wanted.
Right.
So I would always take them off, and I'd have them nearby. But what good does it do you if they're nearby and something happens? So after taking his class and seeing all the pictures that you're describing, Dale, I was much more vigilant about that. And the one thing I remember too was like the pop collar. I always had my collar down until I took his class and saw the benefit of having that collar there. It popped in the proper way. So anyways, didn't mean for us to go down this rabbit hole, but it's a good one, to talk about.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
A lot of folks don't consider that very often, at least. There's
a lesson in there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because they were all cool, they thought they were so cool. And the old guy shows up, they were baking their helmets to get them darker. So they would look like an old smoke, they put it in the barbecue.
Wow.
And one day they came in and I was cleaning my helmet off. They go, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I'm cleaning all the carcinogens off of my helmet." So they were a great group. And I remember, I only had a few rookies that were that young that I got to deal with, in my short 9-year career.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what I loved about, becoming a mentor there and
sure.
And still doing it, with I have a 28-year-old director of maintenance here, so helping him learn and mentorship is part of the program.
Yeah. I think that's one of the most important parts that we should focus on once we're in. And Tony, I'll shine the light on you. We've talked about this quite a few times. I remember going to my first APSA or AppsCon conference in Phoenix, and I was brand new to the unit, had no experience, and I meet up with Tony for lunch. It was a group of guys, including Tony, for lunch one day, and Tony was super friendly and welcoming, even though I had zero experience, and that's always stuck out to me. So just to be put yourself in a position to be a mentor and to be welcoming, I think was huge. So thank you, Tony, for doing that. That was very impactful for me.
When we go to these conferences, and I appreciate you saying that, you go to these big conferences or you go to a training class, and like Dale, if you're the older, tenured guy, the guy with experience, you always have to think back to when you were the new guy and you were coming up to guys that had a lot of experience, or you wanted to get into a certain unit, and you can remember the select few guys that kind of shined you on. Hey, you're a newbie. I don't have time for you. And if you remember how that felt, and then you fast forward to this point in our careers, Dale, you're in the same boat. I'm one of those guys that always wants to give back, whether it be through training or somebody asks you for some advice or lessons learned. I think most of the industry is that way. Not everybody, but most are that way, to where they want to obviously help somebody coming up through the ranks. Always share some good lessons learned, and don't be that guy that's going to shine people on when they're coming around you and they're like a brand new sponge. They haven't soaked anything up yet. You should be there to help them out. And again, most of the industry is like that. I'm not trying to say it's not, but there are a select few out there that don't want to give you the time of day, and that's unfortunate.
They're just little flowers, man. You just got to give them a little water and they'll bloom right in front of you.
Well, Dale, for you own your own business as an AirTac company. Can you talk about the pathway that led you from the fire service and then to where you are currently?
Well, we had moved to San Francisco after 97, and I left Sacramento City, and I was doing entertainment full time. And it was just the noise there. You could hear the noise all the time, and I wanted to get back to someplace a little more peaceful. So we found 30 acres in Grass Valley and sold. My wife had a house when I met her, and I had a house that we were renting out. We sold the houses and bought 30 acres in Grass Valley. And then when I was doing great in music. I was making as much as a firefighter, during the .com era. There was a lot of money running around in the tech world, for entertainment budgets, and things were smoking until the collapse in around 2000. So we bought that property, and I figured out how to get a house built out there. Now, I'm not talented that way, but I oversaw the project. We built a home on a mountaintop in Grass Valley. Well, when we were getting finished with that, I went out on the road with the Dynatones, and the guy shorted me money, and I'm like, I'm tired of. I want to be around people. Something was missing in my life, and I hadn't identified it yet, and then I got the clearance for the fire clearance at my property, and the former air attack at the Grass Valley Air Attack Base, Charlie Jacobs, showed up to give me my fire clearance to sign it off so I could get my house final. And while he was there, he saw a fire down at Beale Air Force Base he goes, "Hey man, I used to be the air tech. Watch this." And all of a sudden, here comes an OV-10 and two S2s. And I'm like, I know what I want to do now. That's what I want to do, And I was 41 at the time. And I said, so, Charlie, I was a fireman before. I said, I don't want to be a on the ground fireman, but maybe I could do fire aviation. And he said, well, how old are you? I said, I'm 41. He goes, are you a pilot? I said, no. He goes, you don't have a chance in hell at doing something like that.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, cool. So the next day, I'm at the Rouse in Grass Valley, and I'm walking through, and I see a guy in a gray jumpsuit. And I approach him. I say, hey, are you a pilot? He goes, well, yes, I am. I go, okay. What's your name? I'm Ozer. What's your name? I'm Dale. He goes, well, come to the tanker base. I'll show you. And this is how he used to talk. He flew Tanker 8-9 for years. He was F-14 Top Gun pilot. He goes, well, first you got to be a pilot. And I go, okay, I get that part. I go, cool, come visit. So I went and I took my notebook and I listened to him talk to me as he ate his steak. and he just started spitting stuff out at me. You need this, you need that, you need this, you need that.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over $150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
And the next year, I went to ATP flight school, and I found a website called Jet Careers. How am I going to do this? And I found a website called Jet Careers. It was how I met Matt Fluka. And I hope I'm saying it right, because I've always said it the way you have. So he'll have to correct this. Sorry, Matt. Anyway, so that's how I met Matt Fluke. It was through Jet Careers, but I learned that as a civilian at 42 years old, I could become a pilot. And it had all changed when I wasn't looking at it. It wasn't military, So I went to ATP flight school, and then I became instructor at ATP and was building the multi-time. And I flew up to Grass Valley Airport 2 years later as a multi-engine instructor. I took one of my students in there and went and visited Hoser. And he goes, what? You're doing what I said? I said, yeah. And so he goes, okay. He goes, all right, we'll do this, this, and this. So I said, okay. 2 years later, I came back, and I was a co-pilot on the Brasilia at SkyWest Airlines. And he goes, wow, that's great. He goes, do that. You're going to need to get PIC time and stuff. And so 2 years later, I came back. Well, I'm a captain at SkyWest on the Brasilia. You're kicking the shit out of it. He says, I can't believe it. So that, and I thank Hoser, because he was the guy that was the mentor, where the other guy tried to say, no way, you can do it, Well, so then he's like, well, now we got to get you some firefighting experience. And I looked on Jet Careers, and there was a picture of a P3 prop with some barrage out there. And he said he was in Chico. But in the blind, I write him an email and I say, hey man, I really want to be a firefighting pilot. He goes, well, I'm the chief pilot of Aero Union. Why don't you come visit me? So I went and flew for Aero Union in 2009. Cool. And the last 3 years of their existence, I was flying P3 tankers. And I called Charlie. I go, well, I'm flying a P3 tanker. What? I'm like, well, anyway. So that's how I got into fire aviation.
So from your first that first time you said I want to be a pilot to where you're now working for the P what was the company's name? P3?
Yeah, the P3 for Aero Union. Yeah, it was Aero Union was in Chico. And so it was October. Well, it was October of 2002 when I talked to Charlie. It was a year later when I started flight school. So I started flight school in 2003 because I had to put some stuff together. And from 2003, when I took my first flight lesson of October, I was in the right seat of a P3 in April of 2009.
Wow, that's cool.
That's 6.5 years from when Charlie told me there was no chance, and 5.5 years from when I first started flying. So yeah, and I just was, just put my head down. In the meantime, I got a college degree because I needed one if I wanted to be a pilot. So I went to school online. I made captain at SkyWest, and I have a very supportive wife who's an attorney, so I was able to focus on that. And a lot of people don't have that, that kind of support. So I was very fortunate that my wife, Winnie, is really supportive of,
Yeah, absolutely.
How many times have we heard that story, John? And we brought it up in this podcast. People are going to tell you no. You're going to run into all these obstacles. But if you keep your eye on the goal, this is a perfect example of how he still made it, even when the first guy he talked to said you don't have a chance. So perfect example, great story. I mean, that is awesome. We love hearing that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That passion meets determination. That's awesome.
I ran into the right guy the second day. The very next day, he was like, I go, did you see us? He goes, oh, you were trying. I saw you on your house. I'm like, yeah. So yeah, we lost him a few years ago, but I'm so thankful for Hoser.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But what was your experience like flying tankers initially?
Oh, I really enjoyed it. It's really mostly basically just a low approach, missed approach. You to go down, drop the retardant. And if it's anything more exciting than that, you're doing it wrong. It's really should be calm the whole time,
As a Forest Service firefighter, seeing the helicopters come in and drop water and seeing the tankers come in and drop retardant was the best part of the job. And it's funny, you're talking about the helmets earlier. I remember when I worked for the Forest Service, if your helmet was full of retardant, like you're the man, like you've been some places and done some things. So I remember, getting hit a couple times and I was really proud. I was like, yeah, look at my helmet now. It's full of retardant, probably not the best thing to do, but yeah, it's really cool that you got to do that. And, compare and contrast that from your time as a airline pilot. What was your experience, from one to the next?
Well, it really is they a lot of times don't go together. The airline they get off, they have somebody load their bag in a van, and they leave the airplane at the gate, and then they go to the hotel and they come back. And it can be a grueling schedule. And I really loved it once I made captain, because I could really I had a lot of autonomy at SkyWest. I mean, as a captain, I saw something, I could take action and make something better for an employee or for a customer. I really liked. So when I was at the tanker, though, I washed the airplane. I mean, my job was to clean the retardant off the airplane. I was lower than the mechanic that was on there, which is probably fair because he kept the thing flying. The captain put the retardant down. My job was to make sure we didn't hit anything and make sure the engines were healthy as we went down the canyon.
Yeah.
Really, adding flaps and I would also be powering the engines, so I would operate the engines and the flaps. So I had the throttles, and the captain would be flying, down. And so they were both great experiences for me. I really liked being a captain at the airline, and I really liked being a co-pilot at Aero Union. I wish I'd had a chance to become a captain, but they went out of business.
Yeah, it's quite an experience. I'd imagine, look at the dynamics of weather that surrounds fire and some of the different, weather phenomenons you faced
right.
as a co-pilot,
Right.
So you leave that position after they go out of business, and then how do you?
I will say that I did feel heat in the cockpit one time, going down a canyon, I think it was in the Rockies, east of Boise. We were going down, and the trees were exploding as we were going down to drop retardant down lower than where the fire was coming down the hill, and I saw it light up like this. And as we went by, I felt the heat on my face. It was like, okay, this is real, you know.
Yeah, a little different.
Yeah, it was cool though. So yeah, I worked there for the 3 years.
And Tony, you find yourself in that environment fairly often, don't you? Where you're actually feeling the radiant heat.
Yeah, we're down, and Dale is up top, you know, running the show with his CAL FIRE partner, forestry partner, ATGS. And we're down around 50 feet. So what he just described, the radiant heat, we're feeling that all the time. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, we're down there where the fire is making its own weather. It's making its own updrafts, downdrafts. And I've often watched, you know, guys come down to make their drops in the retardant droppers. And there are times where I know the winds down in that canyon are crazy. And I'm wondering, if I'm getting pushed around in a helicopter, I often wondered how much they're getting pushed around, you know, when they're coming on final, because they're getting pretty low. I know they're getting beat up also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Sea-Doo do 60 feet or so. A lot of the other ones would do 100 feet. And then the bigger ones will be in 200 feet as their drop there. That's, you know, for like the larger aircraft.
And what is your, what is your cutoff for wind speed? I know there's a certain sustained wind speed where you guys will just ground yourselves. I'm talking about the retardant droppers.
Yeah, I don't have that number.
I think it's 40 knots.
Yeah,
does that sound about right?
At a certain point, it doesn't shear right, and it won't even land in the trees correctly. It just it's a waste, and it becomes too dicey for those guys down there. I'll go down, you know, with an air attack to 501 feet and feel it before we'll even call for it sometimes. Because I'll be over the fire working, and, you know, what's that funny helicopter with the one guy looking out the window, the
K-Max?
Yeah, the K-Max.
Yeah.
When those guys start talking about they don't like it anymore, okay, that's our canary in a coal mine, right? Because they can't control direction the same as someone with a good rotor. So I've also often told a new air attack, when those guys start worrying about it, okay, those guys need to go, and then you need to be talking to your other guys pretty closely to make sure that they're handling that wind.
Yeah,
but I don't know the number.
Yeah, I think some of our bigger fires where it was sustained 40, we've flown in 40 to 55, which is really dicey in helicopters. I think it was around 40 that the bombers didn't come back. They get grounded.
When you're flying in 40 knots, Tony, are you seeing your drops kind of get blown away by the wind, or?
Yeah, right around 40 and above, basically our drops are wasted, and then people will ask us, well, why are you still there? Well, we're there because our helitac crew that we dropped off at the beginning of the day is still down there fighting fire, and they're our responsibility. So we may not be dropping water, but we're there in case they get in trouble. We got the hoist on board. So you're still there to support your crew that's on the ground. Your drops may not be effective, but they're still down there cutting line and using the chainsaws and doing a great job. So we hang out for them. But right around 40 knots, even our drops become ineffective. They come out of the tank and they go right down back towards the tail rotor.
Right.
And you're really not getting anything on the ground.
Yeah. And Dale, can you talk about leaving Union Aero and then kind of how you wound up at the decision to start your own business and what that looked like?
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers.
thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
Thank you to our sponsor, Spectrum Aeromed. Spectrum Aeromed is your trusted partner in aeromedical solutions. Experience safety and innovation with their customized interiors designed for both rotor and fixed-wing aircraft. Elevate your patient care with Spectrum Aeromed. For more information, please visit us at spectrum-aeromed.com or visit our team at NBAA Base, booth 1107, or at AMTC, booth 819.
You protect and defend. So do we. Astronautics' proven cybersecurity, connectivity, and upgrade solutions support helicopter OEMs and operators worldwide. When the mission matters, you need to trust that your avionics systems are secure, connected, and reliable because lives depend on it. Continue to protect and defend. So will we. Contact Astronautics at www.astronautics.com.
As we wrap up this insightful 2-part series of the Hangar Z Podcast, we want to take a moment to acknowledge the challenging fire season we've just experienced in Western North America. This year has tested the resilience and dedication of our aerial firefighting crews like never before. It was great to hear from an expert like Dale Head as he describes just how intense and demanding these situations can be, from the controlled chaos of aerial missions to the critical importance of advanced equipment in combating wildfires. Dale's experiences remind us of the vital role that teamwork, mentorship, and safety play in ensuring the success and safety of every mission. As we reflect on the stories shared today, we recognize the hard work and commitment of those in the fire service and the aviation community who rise to the occasion when the stakes are highest. To all the firefighters, pilots, support staff, and volunteers who have worked tirelessly this season, thank you for your courage and unwavering commitment to keeping our communities safe. Cheers.
Time to close up the hangar. Thanks for joining us on the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts.